We heard we have some surprise guest as well, right?
Probably, but that's still alpha to be released for the public.
Sonalis, yeah, but we won't be announcing having surprise.
Hey guys, exciting to be at another stream, this time with some really exciting guests. On the one hand, just going very brief through it, we have Oliver von Lambulama, which is one of the upcoming meme coins. They did a really exciting way how they started building up their community, and therefore it's already much bigger, even if they don't even have a token yet. And Hussain from Grindery Smart Wallet, he made it that in less than a year they had more than 1.5 million users and actually are now the leading smart wallet. So pretty exciting here as well. Yuri from Claimer, one of the platforms who actually can give you an actionable insights on how to engage your user base and bring them to the products. And Interact, which is one of the very popular Quest spaces and Quest platforms. We have Harsh today. So it will be a very exciting discussion. We talk about airdrops. What are they? What are they doing? How are they working? And we'll get insights from all of these experts. As always, feel free to comment on any of the platforms that we are streaming. We are currently live on YouTube, on LinkedIn, as well as on X or Twitter, like everybody calls it still. And yeah, exciting to start the discussion. So let's start with the first question. What is an airdrop? What defines it? What is not an airdrop? Who wants to start?
Raising the hand. What is an airdrop? Basically, it's like
Right.
a reward for the community, I would say. So basically, any product you're building, if it's a meme coin, wallet, what you not, DeFi protocol, you have a community, and community actually makes your product work. To have that economics going, you usually do it like rewarding the community in the form of a token. Basically, I think the mother of all airdrops is the Uniswap token, which got dropped like back in the day. Let's put it like that. Which not a lot of people were expecting, not a lot of notice around it, and that's actually to incentivize your community. Like, hey, here we are. You're already using our protocol, our product, whatever we have built, and then the token is going to be used for the protocol itself or what you not, and it will create some value. Of course, there's some tokenomics behind it. But I think it's more like an airdrop is basically like the reward or the starting point of a token to generate value for your community, for your project, and anything else. And it's also the economic value that a lot of airdrops get.
Nice. Great start. But I'm sure there's a lot of different versions. Like,
let me also try. Let me try to define it also.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think that there is no like one unified definition yet. We consider, and we see at least we've done like a little bit more than 100 airdrops right now. So we see that it mostly, even with Uniswap, it's just a tactic of, I would say in Uniswap, somehow it was a tactic of retaining and rewarding users, right? So somehow now when we're having all this idea of points that seems to be like dominating last year, we have very similar idea also in Web 2, points used for loyalty programs, right? So it's kind of stimulate retention. But what we see recently, especially throughout last year, that airdrops essentially it's incentivized tactic to reward users for bringing other users. So we've seen something that Blast done and maybe some meme coins done. We also been participating with Beer, one of the biggest one throughout last half year, and they've been using a lot for bringing new users. There was no token yet, but it kind of incentivized tactics of user acquisition, right? So in one case, it might be something like a tactic for user retention and loyalty. Another way, it might be also a tactic of user acquisition if there's nobody else there. So me as a marketer, of course, I see it as a marketing tactics, which is very nice. It's very engaging. I love it. But essentially, there are these two goals. This is how I would define it.
Interesting. So challenge. If I pay an influencer $50 and a random person on their Twitter account will get that $50 for shilling my project, do I do an airdrop?
You're basically doing an airdrop as well.
Like, I mean, they mostly call it an airdrop. Hey, we have a new airdrop for you available.
I think it's going to be a giveaway, right? So I think airdrop is going to be essentially a massive campaign that focused on a large amount of users rather than maybe one or two. Otherwise, it's going to be like, I think, in sweepstake, raffle, or giveaway category, which is part of the whole marketing background for, I don't know, hundreds of years, I guess. So I don't think so. What do you guys think?
So,
how many users
that's the big campaign? Yeah, you can go ahead. So I believe that's also like an airdrop that you are doing. It's a mini airdrop if you're paying with influencer, etc. But the main category of airdrop is when you reward your massive user base, like with the amount of tokens and points that you are going to give to the community. Like at Grindery.io, till now we have already rewarded more than 1.5 million users with our on-chain G1 token, and we have like 900k plus on-chain holders of our Grindery 1 token. So we believe like the definition of airdrop for every protocol and project is different, but the main thing is to build a community, and for us is bringing this main like a massive Web2 users into Web3 using Telegram and our EVM smart wallet. So that's the thing, like everyone has their own definition of airdrop.
I would like to kind of provide my own elaboration on riddle given by Chris that I mean that exactly sets the point that we are not clear with definition. Some people would call that an airdrop. I would not. Sometimes it depends on how people perceive this, and we can use like the same methods and same technologies, but if it involves like different type of announcements or different numbers of people, we can consider one being an airdrop, another is like raffle. It can be both at the same time. Very often we see these things that, for instance, Yuri and I would call giveaways, right? But people just call them airdrop and nobody argues. So yeah, I think the glossary here is not currently set in place, and probably it will be at some point. But now, yeah. So I think starting with definition in the beginning of this event was the correct thing to do. Yeah, just as Chris rushed straight into the topic, I'd like to remind everyone that also this event is run by MC Squared Finance, and I'd like to give like a very brief description of what we are building. So we introduced a protocol for digital asset management, connecting traders, strategists, and investors on a compliant, transparent platform. And just to put it simply, we actually want to get operations in DeFi organized. So people who just come to the DeFi ecosystem actually stay and enjoy and have, productive presence there. And yeah, without further ado, let's continue.
Yeah, guys, it was crazy to understand so many point of views around airdrops and definitions. I just have a very simple understanding because as a partnership manager, I've done like a lot of consulting around airdrop strategies, projects ranging from like having just a few thousand users to having like 100,000 or a million users. I've consulted them all. I think it narrows down to just one simple thing, which is airdrop is just an event which happens at scale, which is to reward to your users slash contributors. It's as simple as that. It is just an event that happens at scale where you reward your users or contributors. uh, like put it simply, it's just that.
And then let's maybe move forward into what types of airdrops do you think are existing? Like, what is the typical types that we can see now in the pre?
May I start with kind of adding one more, answer towards previous question, but also answering this one here right now. There are things when people are, getting the airdrops simply by being on a platform, like before it's been announced. Sometimes it's called retro drops, but technically it can just be called airdrops, or one of the types that actually rewards like the community and the user base without people knowing in advance, and they may be pursuing other goals, although of course it boosts the marketing as well. So I think this method can be effective in some point. Also, there are some kind of quick airdrops. Meme coins involve those often when only a few several simple actions are required. And some projects like ourselves quite recently involve more extended campaigns with series dynamically changing series of tasks that target different types of audience and can have different levels of involvement and engagement. If you ask me if there is some kind of classifications, then I don't know of any of such. I'm just kind of providing the examples, but maybe there are some kind of study that tries to classify all these types of airdrop campaigns, and maybe there are even more that we can hear from our panelists right now.
uh, I would like to add to this point, like what are the multiple types of airdrops available, or like people opting for multiple types of airdrops these days. It's so you would see like some airdrops being liquidity focused. For example, Zeke is saying they were more focused on liquidity, right? You would see some uh, airdrops focused around just the engagement on the product, just pure engagement. That's it. For example, Sharp Labs did their airdrop recently. They were mostly focused around social engagement and the product engagement, right? And some it depends upon project to project, and I believe the type of airdrop that they will be considering, it stems from the tokenomics of that project, right? For example, if the token has certain tokenomics wherein the token will still hold utility and value for the user even after the TG happens, the airdrop happens, even after that first dump happens, uh, people will still use it. So it will be more liquidity focused, right? And the activities, the engagement will be more liquidity focused, right? And if it's more around the engagement, right? If we have seen certain airdrops, for example Starknet, it was not that good, right? It was not that great. PA users were not at all happy, right? So I think that was more about engagement, and it totally depends upon everyone is trying their luck out. It's totally up to them. And how long you do it, that is also a case. For example, Linea has been teasing their airdrop for a long time. They started with LXPs, now they are at LXPLs. I don't know what will come later, but yeah, their airdrop is pretty hyped, right? It's pretty expected.
Yeah.
People have been farming it from a long time. But yeah, it totally depends upon what the product is and how the tokenomics of that particular project looks like, because I think this type of airdrop stems from tokenomics only.
The Starknet is a great example. I think one of the things was the huge amount of immediate unlocks. How do you see about like airdrop trends and like techniques? How do you see vestings and lockings for airdrops? Because like people want to have it now, but that also makes a big issue for the project. They kind of not stay long term. What are here the latest trends and things, how people handle that?
So, yeah, I mean, to add to that, if you just see, recently, dBridge also launched their token, right? And they have done this vesting technique. They've used this vesting technique. Parcel also launched their token. They did their season 1 or season 2 airdrop. I'm not sure, but they have also done this technique. Uh, I am a person who thinks more from the business side. That, like, I have to think from both the user and the business side both. Uh, I think from the long term perspective, you have to sacrifice on that user satisfaction for a bit, because it's going to give you much leverage if you do, vest that token. But you also have to provide certain options, because there are going to be active farmers which will never come back to you. They'll just dump your token. But there are also going to be users who will, forever be using your product. So, vesting, I think it's a good way to safeguard yourself from that big dump that happens after the airdrop. But to also give the user an option so that they can completely take an exit. For example, dbridge, it's charging a 20% penalty, that's it, and you can just run away with 80% of the tokens that you have, right, whenever it lists. But Parcel did not do that. Parcel was like, okay, I'll give you 50% of it now, 50% of it later, and if you want all of it, you just deposit the 50% from your pocket, and then you will be able to take it out like 2 months earlier. That's what they did, right? So yeah, that's what I think about it, and you guys can also contribute to the thoughts.
Yeah, of course. I think like there are multiple ways to do airdrops, right? You can do like the fair launch approach, where you know that actually like most of your holders probably wouldn't dump, but that's also open for gaming. I mean, we do a meme token. What you see a lot is like a token gets dropped on 1,000 wallets. Probably 500 are owned by the team and the market maker involved. And basically you get like this pump scheme that people buy in because they see a token rise and that kind of stuff. The other way is like what we have seen with bigger projects like CK Sync, Starknet, and whatnot, that basically like the airdrop is used for user acquisition, or basically like people who like interact with the project. Coming also from an NFT background, you see a lot on L2s happening in the NFT department just before the drop, because everybody is farming. But the thing is, like, there's a huge amount of investment capital in those projects. So, like what you see in the community, or what you just saw, what you saw in when the airdrop happened, for instance, at CK Sync, like I think like 90% of the community was like totally unhappy because they spend a lot of time working with the protocol. Of course, there's a lot of like, I mean, airdrop farmers is like almost like a job nowadays. I mean, people spend full time farming what you not. And but in the end, it's like what we just talked about, like giving that reward to your community, but then still like having this total diluted value from the get-go sitting at, I think CK Sync was around 2 bill. So yeah, the only thing what can happen is like a dump of tokens, and especially by the VCs, because they don't usually work with vesting and that kind of stuff. So yeah, what we do in our project is basically a combination of, I mean, nothing is for free in this world. So the fair launch thing, what happens with a lot of meme tokens when they're kind of bigger, as we all know, like an exchange listing or whatnot, it costs money, right? It's not for free. So how does a meme token, for instance, get build their treasury from? Well, basically using their community as exit liquidity, because basically it's like the market maker pumping and dumping on the token itself, if you know what I mean, with a large supply, hold by the project itself, and then basically it's like taking a little bit of or a lot advantage of your community for building the treasury and going to the next steps like listings and that kind of stuff. So what we decided to do is like before airdrop, we do some kind of pre-sale called like an IBCO, so initial bond curve offering. So there is some price discovery in there, and do the airdrop afterwards. What we do differently is like we have projects that are participating in our airdrop. I'm looking now at Chris. So we have something for the community in store. So that's how we actually do the airdrop. So basically also to prevent dumping a bit. And there's going to be some vesting talk about larger numbers of airdrop, because you cannot help it if you airdrop a token. Of course, there's going to be a part of the community says like, hey, nice, this is a nice profit taken, even if it's $10. So you will get sell pressure. And for us, for instance, it's like the vesting is used to navigate that a bit. I mean, of course, it's going to be buy pressure and that kind of stuff. We have a whole lot of stuff lined up, but finding that balance is also like kind of really difficult. So, I mean, there's like no golden rule of doing like an airdrop correctly. I mentioned Uniswap just before because that I think was like a really fair airdrop. What you see nowadays, I mean, we're living in 2024, and like I said, like airdrops is like a job description. So then it's the purpose of like rewarding that community, and then it's also like how loyal is your actual community, because what you also saw in a lot of L2s is like the majority of traffic comes actually from airdrop farming, and once there's like some profit to be made, like the majority of the community will leave. So no fixed answer on that one. What's a golden strategy? But I've seen at least like everything being tested out right now. Like what's a good way to do an airdrop? Some things work, some things don't. I saw like
Ole just mentioned one interesting thing. It was kind of cool. I think that we had an airdrop sprint running for 3 months, and I still don't know why it's called sprint, but we did a lot of great things, and people like our community was actually very much involved. But after some time, when you have like a long extended event running for like more than 2 months, it was like a breath of fresh air. Then actually we partner up with Lambo Llama, so they included extra value like towards the rewards pool. And I think it was a very curious experience. I've never seen something like that before. That there is a partnership, like a collab, that also becomes that is being embedded into an active running airdrop sprint. Luckily, our one, it was dynamic. People actually could involve as much as they wanted, but also they could participate, into this rewards pool for an additional reward coming from Lambo Llama itself. And I think this, I'd say experiment ran very well. I'm pretty sure we got lots of extra participants also due to this, extra intake.
We briefly already talked about the history of airdrops, like when you talked Uniswap as kind of the key one to actually kickstarting it. This cycle, they're super popular. What changed from last cycle to this cycle? What are the current trends in airdrops?
Wait a minute. I don't think we all might be agreeing that Uniswap is the first one. I would say, because if you take a look right now, so Uniswap essentially it's a retro drop, right? So it's a loyalty system, essentially rewarding users for using your app. While what we see today is often companies that do not exist 1 month ago and they just launching, and it's user acquisition, right? So when it's user acquisition, we're going back to 2017 to like ICO age. Where actually I joined the whole thing in 2016, 3 months before the ICO age. And back then, this whole thing would be called bounty campaign. So right now, we have this kind of bounty campaign became an airdrop, which is like engagement-focused airdrop. And now you have also a loyalty type of airdrops that are going to be similar to Uniswap, right? But what I would say is that where we definitely is going, with kind of as an industry, we slowly start to face this very important question, right? So we see people jumping from one project to the other. And the question is exactly the same question that any company in Web2 right now is asking, that running a software. I don't know, guys, if you're watching only like Web3 trends, also Web2 trends. But essentially the question is, if we cannot acquire users, how can we actually retain existing users? And this is very nice question for any like mature business. And actually, I think this is the first time crypto actually facing, not because of the price of the Bitcoin or Ethereum, but it's facing like an existential crisis. Can we create something that do not also only create this initial flash of interest, but has a lasting interest? Can we actually make users fall in love with what we do? Which is incredibly uncomfortable question, right? But also when you look at the airdrops, they also have to change this way, because it's not enough only to reward your loyal user base if its user base is 200 people. And it's not enough to bring 100,000 users that are going to leave tomorrow because somebody else giving a better terms or better tokenomics. So now we would have to combine these two. We're going to have this hybrid model. And I think it's only starting to emerge, and it's actually extremely interesting how it's all going to work out.
Nice. I think also in a sense, going more hybrid and especially going more product focused, spending time with what is the key user journeys and how you can actually get the users to go through the unit journeys while incentivizing them.
You're absolutely right, Chris. And this is where there is a trick, right? So kind of wordplay that we do when we talk about airdrops, because it's very interesting because we can give different definition for the same word in different contexts, right? So when people say engagement in Web3, and everybody somehow agrees on that, it meaning like amount of likes on your Twitter post that you're actually shilling with your community. But me, coming from Web2 and the product world, I would say engagement, it meaning how often users actually interact with your app. Right? So when we talk about this, we're being a little bit sneaky of, replacing these two. But actually the engagement with your actual app, especially in the case if it doesn't bring you profit. So how much people actually love it, Well, this is a very interesting question. This is what any normal market would have to face. And we're kind of facing it right now. So thank God, I would say. Thank crypto God. Thanks, Satoshi.
Cool. Let's move forward. We talked already actually about a lot of famous cases in airdrops. So maybe if you would, what are the tools currently used for an airdrop? What are components that you should use? You probably, there's not one single thing how you plan your airdrop, but it's rather that you slowly build it up from a user group. What are famous tools, famous structures that people can use to work around the airdrop to make it as successful as possible?
Yeah, they're the obvious one. If you're like us, if you're not live yet, how do you interact with your user? How do you get them excited for what you're building? First of all, it's info, right? So you use your media channels to do so. It's about creating a narrative. Also, when you have a running product, it's a narrative in the end, right? Let's go way back. The mother of all coins, Bitcoin. When it just started, to be really honest, it was this thing where probably 99% of the people was nice experiment, but not going to succeed. And the people were actually incentivized there. Basically, the Bitcoin community back then, well, it was about a lot of fun. It was a narrative. Basically, I would say it probably was the first meme token out there, because there's techniques involved, but it's still a narrative. And there was a lot of fun. So let's buy pizza for I don't know, 100,000 Bitcoin or something. So that's how it all started. So building that narrative, the utility comes into it. And let's turn time forward to where we are now. Look at where we are now. The financial world is doing ETF stuff and that kind of stuff, which is actually also kind of funny to see that is something that really gets applauded within our space right now. Whereas if you look at the founding of Bitcoin, for instance, there's this famous message right from I think it was one newspaper about banks getting helped out during the banking crisis. So it's this counterculture which is now turned around hey, applauding that banks finally accept us. So it's fun to see, right? So that's what I have about narrative. Then there are the obvious tools, right? You've got Sealy, Galaxy, whatever. You can do quests. I think we briefly touched on Linea. like how many quests can you do in a year? Well, they're setting the example over there, which is kind of good because you have an engaging community. It's not like, oh, let's like I don't know, wash trade X amount of money and get a big drop, like in the arbitrant drop, where a lot of like, let's say, Airdrop farmers got really rich from. So that's a nice way to do it. So there are a bunch of tools. Like if you look at the meme kind of thing, if it's just about a joke and not really building something which is lasting, just something fun, like I don't know, J.O. Bowden or something, you can just use pump.fun and just launch a token within seconds. And like, this is joke, this is narrative, and that's it. You'll probably die within a month, but that's it. So what we are doing is like we start with a narrative, doing something fun, humoristic, combining Lambos and llamas. But in the end goal, there's something quite serious behind it because we see kind of like trouble within our whole ecosystem, right? It's like made out of tribalism, different networks. It's difficult to communicate with each other. So maybe one project lives only on this network, while another project lives on that network. And that's where our idea came from. Why don't we build a community token which is actually cross-chain, natively bridgeable? And what more can we do with it? Let's do that inclusiveness, what he had from the get-go with Bitcoin. Let's focus on that. So we focus on multicultural, women in Web3, that kind of stuff. And then also you need your playground. So what we are doing right now is also like we're kind of busy actually, like building that L2. So like also make a little bit of fun of the current state that it is. Like everybody builds an L2 nowadays, but in the end have a token which goes anywhere. So tools, yeah, software wise, but it also depends on the project you're running. I just mentioned meme tokens. Well, MC Squared, that's an whole different ball game, of course. You're a DeFi protocol, serious stuff. So also your user base will look a little bit different. Yeah, I think people can in this call can contribute to this, like what tools are they using and that kind of stuff. Well, we use mainly like right now Zeely, but there's a whole bunch coming up.
I will like to add on it. So I think like the building the airdrop side is depending upon on your protocol as well. But as we have seen in currently like protocols like Layer 0, even ZK Sync, I think the fair distribution of the airdrop plans also faces like is a very important sector that you need to see on. Like we see this protocol such as ZK Sync rewarding the top influencers and people such that more with like calling them the super chain legends or something like this, that these people are going to stay with the chain. But we have what we have seen on TGE, like all of these people dumping these tokens on them, and the community start hating to them. So I think in current stage, Telegram is a very good platform that can be used to reward airdrop. We have seen like currently the biggest airdrops that are launched in Web3, and also like with real use cases, that is onboarding actually the Web2 users into Web3, like the Dogs airdrop that just went live on Binance a few days ago. Then we have Hamster Combat, that is the upcoming game. The protocol also depend upon it, but we can see like the amount of users and engagement like such protocols can bring. So that's the thing with Grindery as well. We are building a real use case, a real product. We are building a EVM wallet, so bringing this EVM chains liquidity for the Telegram users. And yeah, we're going to reward them accordingly with the fair distribution. And I think Telegram is a very undervalued tool that can be used right now.
Yeah, I'd like to add onto this question. Although speaking of like the components, I don't mean the tools, but rather how I plan the airdrop sprint that we had running for 3 months, because there were numerous things to consider. I wanted to make sure that, as I already mentioned, various types of people would still be interested to join. And also I wanted to take into account that people who come later, who can't be, at the top of the leaderboard, even if they dedicate all their time because they just joined late, also be incentivized. And also I try to account for all potential of bots to find the loopholes to be there, so we can then cut them off. And so then all of that was combined. We actually came up to a conclusion that we can actually reward everyone, but according to the portion of their input. So that if people just want to get involved a little bit, it's fine. They still can account for certain fair remuneration. And also, what else was important is that sometimes, having so much components also requires some extra, time and effort being dedicated. So I really want to thank all my colleagues who helped a lot with securing all that. And we ended up with a very, I'd say, beautiful, fair bell curve distribution of people, getting points. So for instance, as we've published the results, we had about 3,800 participants. Of course, we eliminated all the bots, so that's after the bot elimination. And among those participants, more than 1,500 were heavily involved. So I think that's a very, very healthy distribution, not like only top 10 people being active and the rest just joined for one like or retweet. So when such things are being considered, you actually end up with some decent results, but of course it takes a lot of work preparation and dynamic moderation of everything you do.
Yeah, and
somehow,
Airdrop always.
guys, I'm super interested. Like, what kind of airdrop you've been running on your own? Was it like a mostly social? Was it social plus on-chain? Was some kind of hybrid
It
model?
was mostly social, but it involved. It involved interaction with our product. Of course, we wanted to feature our product. We wanted people to feature our product. We wanted people to show how they use it, and but all of that. Due to the nature of our product, it's not like many on-chain interactions were trackable at that point. So people just featured, the UI or explained how they use it, because we have like currently a tool to analyze and showcase your portfolios. So basically, it was like it. So technically, yes, it was more like about social interaction and further, spreading of brand value. So yeah.
But you've been actually tracking if users was using the app, right? So maybe sharing the portfolio or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is exactly what I'm saying, right? So this is the kind of hybrid model. And I think you're totally right. So, it's regarding what you mentioned around the tools is that, first of all, it's super funny. So we processed around 4 million users by now. Actually, last 2 millions was throughout last 3 weeks, which was incredibly intense. And I would say amount of people who try to cheat the system is dramatic, but we consider it as a QAs, right? So essentially just helping us out to build something that is actually working. And it's extremely complicated. For example, when we ran with meme coins, I think the guy from Lambo Llama, you might be interested, right? So there was around like 500,000 users overall, and they went maybe to 500 million or 400 million in market cap at a certain point. But amount of bots was insane. And what they smart about, if we talk about actual cases, right? Because we had two very similar projects. One that I unfortunately cannot name by Animoca brands, and somehow they focused only on social part. And it actually was a bit of a disaster from design point of view, because amount of exploits in social media is dramatic. But when you tie this kind of social activity to actual usage of the token, or maybe holding a token, or doing anything significant, right, from business point of view. And when you ask yourself, what is significant from business point of view, guys, this exists for like 15 years. It's called metrics, like product metrics, right? It's going to be awareness, acquisition, referral, retention, and revenue. These are only 5 you have to take care about. If somehow activity of your users tied to that, there are always like a few things that your user potentially might do, right? So I mentioned only 5 metrics. Awareness, how much people actually maybe share about your product. It's important, but not that important. You can buy it from the ads. So acquisition, how much they follow, it's a little bit more important. So, okay, so how often do they come back and actually being engaged, which is going to be product engagement, right? And how often do they bring someone who makes something meaningful, especially revenue, maybe spending with you? And in the end, the most like amount of weight is how much they spend with you. Maybe they spend the amount of time or more than just clicking like, right? Which is already valuable. If they spend 10 minutes, it's already fantastic. Somebody actually traded 10 minutes of their life for your product that might not even exist, which is amazing. So I think this kind of the model, when you weight these different levels, it's kind of very, very much tied to the product metrics, what you're looking at. And even if you only focused on awareness, that's totally fine. But then you have to be prepared that amount of bots and cheaters and like bot farms that right now, some of them are like extremely sophisticated, right? So we managed to cut, I think, 75% of the bot attacks at the moment. But there are 25% of guys that are incredibly smart. And it actually requires like tremendous amount of resources to actually work with them, right? And they're getting better with AI. So you have to be very clear, and what we've seen actually is that this huge airdrop. So right now we're working, I don't think we're on the NDA with Mythical Games. It's A16Z, huge blockchain for games. And they're running right now, and they see amount of attacks over there. It's insane, right? But somehow, because it's tied to their like a product metrics, and the guys building around product, and they came from Web 2, it's very much like a solid design of the airdrop. That, well, in that case, it's kind of airdrop / giveaway, I think, something for boosting like most of the metrics between you and me, but which is also great. And you actually have to do it. And this is the way to acquire users, as I said in the beginning. But you have to be mindful about the metrics. What we've seen is that within a lot of like failed attempts by smaller startups that, for example, this is their first enterprise. But when somebody coming from Web 2, the only difference is not exactly the knowledge of the technology. It's the knowledge of the metrics, KPIs, what you have to take care of. Because this way, first of all, on the part of the airdrop, on developing or delivering the product, you actually start to dominate. And this is what we've seen. And you easily can actually access all this knowledge through YouTube and ChatGPT. It's not something, that you have to fight for. But this is very clear. Like if you look at the product metrics, product marketing metrics, and in that way, like the amount of your on-chain activity is the same. It's just a revenue, right? And somehow you tie them together and your airdrop is built around them. I would say like in 85% of cases, it's actually succeed. And if it's just some kind of garbage and you just try to like replicate whatever others been doing, actually most time it won't because it's like a different market, different community, Yeah, thank you guys.
Totally agree. I think also that people often have the feeling, an airdrop is easier, just throw some tokens out and then people will come. But it actually...
Out of the window.
Yes, exactly. It's like with everything. If you really not put thought behind, then how should it succeed in the end? You leave it to luck. But that maybe is a great point. Also, getting your points on what should people avoid, what should people not do, what are popular things that like are out there, or people say, oh yeah, that's how it works, but that actually people should avoid. Especially like in the current phase, also like in modern airdrops.
So I would like to add to this. What are the things that projects should avoid? So first of all, they should obviously have a system where they remove the Sybil activity. It usually spreads easily that okay. Bots are also going to be awarded, or users like the real percentage of winning for a real user, it's not going to be that high. So a project must be planned that only the real users are able to do it. For example, Linea has done it, right? You cannot be a bot and farm Linea. You just have to be a real user. Obviously you have to verify the Gitcoin score, etc. So yeah, that's it. And one mindset that you should definitely not have is that airdrop is a marketing event or it's a user acquisition event. It's not, guys. It's not at all a user acquisition event. It's a user retention event. It's a retention event. It's purely a retention event. It's not an acquisition event. And I've seen a lot of projects do this. They launch their dApp, they launch their product, they within a month or within 2 months they announce that they're going to do an airdrop, and they don't care if bots are going to come, if real users are going to come. They actually don't care. I think that is something that you should not do, right? First of all, let it happen. Let your community build. Let your community interact with each other, right? Do some collaborations, collaborate with other communities, right? Do that. Never do that. Okay, you start out, you do airdrop, and boom, you have thousands of hundred thousands of users. but they are worth nothing, right? They're not engaging with your product, and they're doing nothing on your product, right? So this is something that you should definitely not do. And one more important thing, uh, I don't know, I've seen good projects consider their tokenomics very seriously, but a lot of projects don't take their tokenomics seriously, right? They just do not, right? I mean, each and every segment of your tokenomics can have consequences, like 1 year later, 6 months later, or even right after the airdrop. You have to plan that efficiently, like what is the utility going to be, what percentage of actual, like they should actually spend time thinking how much VC should be holding, how much community I should give away to, how much I should reserve for like next 3 seasons of airdrop, or I should do only 2 airdrops. This all is planned before, right? And people don't do that. They just make a pie chart. Okay, 20% to community, 15% to VCs, and this percent to me and founders, etc. And boom, they launch the token. It's not that easy. They should not do that. Spend fucking time on your tokenomics. Don't treat it as a marketing event or a user acquisition event. It's a retention event, right? So these are the things that I think are very core to while considering planning an airdrop. That these This mindset you should definitely not have, and you should definitely plan tokenomics like with a bunch of real economists, and spend like 1 to 2 3 months, maybe more, like depending upon your user behavior metrics that you have, depending upon what kind of data analysis that you have done about around your project, around your users, around the percentage of real users that you have. So yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we are solving for other projects. So interact, we identified that this space is filled with a lot of bots, right? As all of you mentioned, bots has significantly higher percentage than real users in this space, right? This is what we figured. Galaxy, you name it, Galaxy botted, Zeely botted, Taskon botted, Question botted. They have significantly higher percentage, at least 30 to 40 percentage of bots on their platforms, right? But luckily Interact was never exposed to such communities. The maximum percentage of botting that we have ever had was 15 to 20%, and those two in certain campaigns where there were a million participants, or let's say 2 million participants. But apart from that, all the users that come to quests are mostly real users, like 95-97% of them are real. That is what we are solving. And we are not helping with tokenomics yet. We might, but that's something that the project has to figure out. Yeah. And yeah, if anyone plans an airdrop, if anyone is looking forward to do that, I personally help you do that. Interact has a lot of consultants that help you do that. We might not make it successful, but we will make it less worse than you might would make it yourself, right?
Uh, Harsh, may I ask you, do you employ some specific technology to combat cyber attacks, or is it just social, occasion, that you actually don't have as many bots as other platforms?
Okay, so this is I'm sharing something which I should not be as a partnership manager, but I'll still do. Earlier, we used to communicate that we have this certain mechanism that okay, we have a profile system, we track, we have a digital footprint of everyone, and all, which I then later realized is kind of basic. Everyone can do that, right? The only thing that kept us from being botted was we were just not exposed to certain communities. We were just lucky enough. We were just not exposed to that number of bots like Galaxy and Zelia are, right? But we figured that this problem exists in that space out there, and we were just lucky enough. We were deploying certain very basic techniques that were working for us. But uh, now with that we have 12 million plus registered users, and about a million of them are active like every month. We have built our own proof of humanity solution. We realize that Gitcoin is a bit very hard for everyone to complete. Like, consider me, I'm a human being, right? I don't hold more than 6 or 7 wallets. but I cannot prove myself that I am a human being to get one, right? It's very fucking difficult, right? So we identified that ZK pass is something that charges money every time that you have to do a ZK attestation, right? Not everyone can do that. So we made a combination of, let's say, social things, like uh, if you were eligible for an airdrop, let's say Arbitrum, let's say a Polygon, let's say you name it, other airdrops that happened in the past, and your social, your Discord account age, your Farcaster account. There are a lot of combinations that we have done, which makes up a certain percentage of human profile. So I am currently 90% human on Interact. I still have that 10% to go, but this makes it available that the project can identify that, okay, this is not a bot because they are 90% human. They might be lacking certain profiles, but they are a human for all, right? They have certain medallions. So this solution we have launched recently, and this NFT costs about $3 to maintain your profile and something, which is then interoperable. We have a lot of things that we're working on the proof of humanity side, and we have a motto that we're working on, which is fuck bots. So yeah, that is the direction what we are moving to.
Cool. Nice.
Quite determined, I'd say. Also like to take this question really briefly so other speakers can also join. So Harsh just mentioned that like project shouldn't rush, shouldn't delay running the airdrop campaign up until very last day, because it actually becomes messy and doesn't really work. But I also know absolutely opposite cases when actually projects took so long to properly explain people what they're doing. Like they created like numbers of tasks, like they provided series of NFTs, and those were supposed to be expected to be given something after all. And then people got confused, people felt scammed, and I won't be dropping names right now as a true proper gentleman, but I know some cases when huge communities just turned against that project in which they were involved, simply because it felt too much extended, too much unclear, and people felt technically not scammed but abused or used. And then even when projects wanted to make up for that by providing some extra retro drops, it no longer worked. People were already angry. And the third kind of mistake that can be done, I think, is that sometimes projects may actually involve the airdrop campaign is their main, if not only, marketing technique. And the problem is that they are risking to end up with just the certain type of community, which may not necessarily be very much close to their main target audience, like the target user base. So I mean, unless you have some kind of project that actually combines both, but that rarely happens. So yeah.
This is a very interesting question, guys. Is that I like that you mentioned it. Is that having experience with talking with a bunch of CMOs and founders to the projects. I think I talked personally with over 500 throughout last year, at least according to my calendar. And I would say that only minimal amount of them can, like on the spot, reply, "What kind of user do you want?" I mean, if you once again, in Web 2, we had it for pretty long time, especially in B2B. It's called ideal customer profile. So when you ask founders or like marketing directors in the space, what are the characteristics of the users you actually want to attract? A lot of them would take a pause, and maybe sometimes, which might last for a few days, to actually define what kind of user do I want. And it shouldn't be something like, crypto fan, not something general, but actually like, what kind of social media profile do you want? What kind of on-chain activity do you want? And unless it's defined, you're going to have very hard time in filtering out someone you do not want, because you don't have clarity what you want. And I mean, it's such a basic thing. And I would say in 80% of cases, there is no clear answer from the side of the project. What they say is, well, somebody who's going to like it. which is kind of a lazy way of approaching ideal customer profile. But when you actually spend a little bit of time, maybe like one day, actually contemplating what kind of user do I want, what kind of user I also do not want, what kind of project we're for, it somehow magically solves so many things on the way. You're saying, okay, so what I want users to do and what kind of user do I want? It's ideal customer profile, ICP. We also have another term that we use widely, like within Claimer community of marketers, is ideal customer behavior, ICB. So I have ideal customer profile and I also have ideal customer behavior. And what I want, essentially, I want to reward users of certain type for ideal customer of actions on behavior that both going to be on-chain and off-chain. And when you put this in as a base of design, because I really much vibing with the whole idea of tokenomics, right? But tokenomics is giving you a very grand, high-level idea about how the whole thing going to be distributed. But the next question after how, it's to whom and for what, right? And it's kind of this another two layers. And as soon as it's defined, I would say once again, it's giving way more clarity, and there's way easier to filter out and kind of skip all of these issues that some projects have.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like this. I mean, finding a golden balance is like in our world next to impossible. We're just talking about bots, right? So I can only say things what you shouldn't do, like failure cases. Not gonna name names, but a few example, like pushing the deadline of a drop too much, like wait a year, that kind of stuff. Everybody gets tired, and your community already left before the drop even happened. Another one is like. Some project did that. We love their tech, by the way, but there was this public, like basically witch hunt going on. Let's find Sibblers and get rewarded, right? So that made like that community like polarized, like two poles. Like, hey, I did a lot of things, and I'm considered a Sybil. What's a Sybil actually? And that took on for a long time. So I think that's something you should not do. That's basically putting the prisoner's dilemma right into your community, which is only one result, and it's like a break in the community because everybody's got their own incentives, and some people are really intelligent, and of course they profited a lot with it. Was actually like getting people like in their like thing of Sybil hunting, right? You get 10% of the original airdrop to that user if he can prove it's a Sybil or not. So I think like of most famous failure case, I think that belongs in that thing. And also like outsourcing, like, that anti-Sybil thing that usually is also like kind of crap. The father's like, oh, I was regarded as Sybil and now I'm not going to be eligible for the drop and I'm a long time user. I mean, even if you just a few like mishaps in that case, it can ruin your community. So I think like public Sybil hunting is like a big no.
Great. It was some very interesting points. Like I saw that. So one of the first thing was what's happening after, like a lot of the projects focusing on, hey, now the airdrop, that's my goal. But actually what's happening after? What do you do afterwards? Hey, the IDO is my goal, but actually what happens after? What is the buying pressure, the selling pressure? How do you actually be active afterwards? The second one that I heard out, which was not directly said, but I think it's a lot of in behind, but I think is very important, is focus on the actual users, care about the users. There was the point of, you just dropped the tokens, but like reading about what they're saying. I think also answering them personally in the chats, even as like founders, being there, be present, showcase that you care about them. Because like if you paid so much to get them and then you say, now I don't care anymore, they can go again. What did you do then? And generally focusing about the long term. And I think that's what typically makes the good projects, that they first think about what happens long term and then seeing what can they do short term to bring it up. As we are slowly running out of time, and I'm sure that you're all very busy. Having founders on a call always means that the next call is just waiting around. So I don't want to keep you forever on a call. It was super exciting. I would love to continue that for another hour, but like we are running out. And I hope to see you again on one of our shows and one of our streams. And yeah, thank you for joining, and have a great day.
Yeah,
Thanks for
one
having
more
us.
thing,
Bye,
guys. I think we still have a minute, and Chris just mentioned chats, right? So, and actually caring for, for the community. We have some questions in the comments, I think, and I think there is one particularly interesting. How do you assess or measure the impact of the airdrop campaign? And I just wonder if somebody else from the panelists would like to take this one.
Yeah,
So we
I mean,
can
it's
see
pretty,
that.
yeah. Please
Yeah.
go on.
So we can see the long-term process of the effect of the airdrop, how successful the token or the protocol is even after doing the TGE or airdrop. For example, we have of Ethena, right? They had a very good product go-to-market fit. Even after airdropping like this bunch of millions of users, we can see the DeFi growth of the protocol has been exponential. But on the other hand, when we see like dead chains where they are just playing the TVL games like Starknet, like a few other we can't name here right now, they're just playing the TVL game. So they are, farming the community, etc. And we see like they don't have the correct product go to market fit. And when the TGE happens, when the airdrop happens, the token basically goes down the lane, and we can see it. So I think it's also a one particular thing. And fair distribution, that's obviously like you need to distribute to your community fairly. Like in my opinion, more people get the airdrop with a fairly distributed manner. That's a better way, rather than having like this Sybil farming, calling your own community Sybil after implementing nonsense and this sort of AI stuff, that you are raising millions of dollars on their name actually. So I think these are things that you need to consider the success of it.
Yeah, I would like just to add to it. That's actually an excellent point, but it's almost like how would you evaluate the impact of you going to gym? And I would say it's based on your goal. Why are you going there? So if you're like a professional athlete, essentially you're going to be measured by your competition, right? So this is going to be the measure. If the measure is amount of likes on Instagram, well, this is kind of the metric you're going to use essentially to evaluate the size of your biceps or whatever, size of your butt. But when we talk about airdrop, essentially they're going to be, I would count only 4 different goals. So based on your goals, it's going to be either something a little bit vanilla, like something like social growth. It would be like token or liquidity growth that just was mentioned, right? Third one is going to be product growth. So some kind of product metrics. You already have users, so engagement of your product. But the fourth one is going to be retention and loyalty. So if you're clear about your initial goal, you know what kind of metrics to look at. And then essentially you can say, did it actually succeed? But you have never done it in the beginning, you would never know, right? So you're just going to have a bunch of numbers, and it's going to be impossible to say if it's actually had any impact at all. There is such term called cargo cult, and I think this is where we're suffering from. And the cargo cult is coming from, I think Polynesia, when at a certain point, these guys, they've been like receiving humanitarian help from British. And at a certain point, these planes with humanitarian help, they just stopped. And these guys pretended that they have a new airport. They built it from bamboo, so the iron bird would come again and bring them some food. So they imitated, the airport from bamboo, but it didn't work out. So what you have to take care is like not being a cargo cult of airdrops. And the only way of doing it is being very clear what are you actually growing, right? And then it's very easy. You say, okay, if it's social growth, then it's very easy. We had X amount of followers. Now we have Y amount of followers. If it's liquidity or token, once again, very simple. What's good about Web3 is that you have all the data available, right? It's all public. So for you, it's very easy to figure out if your protocol actually grew, if social media growth is just, can you actually execute on evaluating it, right? Yeah.
Like how to measure it. I think it's a long-term aspect, like it's more about user retention and actually growing the community, which is not always possible when you hit like a bear market. I would say like a nice measure is like how many real users are sticking around in your project even during the depths of a bear market. I mean, we've been there in other projects, and it's really cool to see that you always have this inner core of people who sticks around and who always steps up when things get tough and going. I think if you reach that after an airdrop, I think you're golden. It's that one. It's actually like building for your user or your customer, or whatever you give it a name. It's the community basically you're building.
Cool. That's great. Yeah. Great last words. Building the community. That's what it's about, and caring about the community. So yeah.
I also see a request for a collab right in comments. Leonardo Iker requests a collab between Grindery and Interact because he says he wants to farm more G1. I don't know. That's cool.
We can execute that.
And
we
there is
10 million G1s.
Yeah, and there is a brief
community.
I think it's Leonardo.
Awesome. There is a brief question directly.
I think it's Leonardo from Grindery itself. I think I'm connected with Leonardo. I'm already having a word with him. let's launch a campaign right away. I mean, let's connect and let's launch one campaign tomorrow. Why not?
Surely we can look into it. But as we went,
cool. I'll just drop in my.
See how our panels create partnerships.
Cool. Great. Then I'll
awesome.
Leave you now, and we'll end the stream. See you next time. It was exciting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, one short question. Whether we are planning new campaigns, we have a new sprint starting tomorrow.